Hi, everybody. My name is Ed Verdell with the VIP team at Compass, and I am here with my colleague, Steve Shulman, to talk about his story and his journey into real estate. Steve is actually the top agent on our team, and he's only been in the business for a few years, since 2021. So we're going to go into his background, his story, his real estate journey, both as an agent and an investor. By way of background, Steve was born in Staten Island, grew up in Freehold, New Jersey, went to school at Montclair State, where he studied economics and played on the baseball team there. And he also gets his hair cut in New York City, for those of you wondering. So, Steve, I'm going to pass it on to you to talk about your journey. Let's start with what got you interested in real estate in the first place, because my understanding is you had a pretty decent corporate career at the time when you first got into this.
Absolutely. Thank you for the introduction, Ed. Real estate, definitely something I was always interested in. It was growing up, I knew I'd be doing my own thing, never knew what that would be. Now, I figured let's just get experiences and then things will fall into place. And fortunately, things did. Now, when it comes to financial freedom, I knew real estate was the number one path to wealth. And that was something that kind of just fell into place in terms.
Well, was there like a podcast, or was there a class you took, or what was the first spark?
So I would say just my willingness to learn and educate myself. Google is a powerful tool.
Okay.
And I did eventually stumble upon Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets, essentially Facebook for real estate investors. Somewhere along the way, and the podcast, the YouTube videos, the blogs, eventually things just took over.
Okay, got it. So, and prior to shifting your career focus towards real estate, what were you doing before? What was your job out of college? What were you doing?
Yep, so before I got into real estate, I was renting in Jersey City in the neighborhood. I was in the Heights here. And I was paying attention to what was going on, the development, all the gentrification, the turnover here in Jersey City. And I was working for related companies in Manhattan, paying attention to what Stephen Ross was doing, paying attention to, Hudson Yards, the development that we were working on there. I got that itch. Things kind of fell into place because of where I was in life. Just, working for a real estate development company, living in a market that's developing, and it was always something I wanted to do, and just paying attention to what was happening around me gave me that itch. And it was around that time when I bought a motorcycle. I took my motorcycle all throughout Hudson County, really trying to find the best market, best location in said market to put my money. And then eventually things kind of spiraled from there.
Market research on the motorcycle. I like this. All right. Yeah. I didn't know that part of the story. Yeah. All right. So you're someone, unlike most, who jumped into real estate full time. Now, most people, they dabble in it part time for a while. They may keep their corporate job. You decided to full-fledged go into real estate. And you actually had a great deal of success your first year. So tell us about your first year, what that was like, what the mindset was like, and kind of what allowed you to be successful then.
Absolutely. So it all started with my investment purchase and my experience thereof.
And tell us about the timeline of that, like when that all happened as well.
I'd say around 2019 is when I got that itch to take it to the next level. I started looking within, the markets here in Hudson County.
On the motorcycle?
Yeah, on the motorcycle. So I, based off my criteria, at the top of the list, it's always budget. I had to play the cards I was dealt. Ended up looking in Bayonne, Union City area. And some point I read the master plan for Bayonne, and I was hooked. And
oh, really? Wow.
I was reading that forward and back on my commute to through the Lincoln Tunnel every morning, and
not on the motorcycle.
Not on a motorcycle. And March 2020, I closed on a two-family row house in Bayonne.
March 2020 was a significant time,
definitely,
in history, because that's when COVID shut us down.
Definitely.
Right?
So we closed March 2020. We My wife and I closed with an FHA 203K, so we were just starting a construction loan. We were ready to put in.
FHA 203K, just by way of background for our audience here,
Yeah.
very brief explanation of what that means.
So an FHA 203K is a first-time homeowner's loan where the bank lends you for the purchase and also the construction, the rehab.
And so how much money did you have to put down on this property?
3.5%.
Three and a half
Similar.
percent down, plus you got the full construction funded by the bank, right? As
Correct.
part of the renovation loan component.
Correct. So I borrowed about half the renovation cost, give or take. That was about 90,000. But in scenarios where you want to borrow your full rehab cost, you can.
Okay,
We took a
understood.
portion from the bank because of our budget.
Okay, got it. And so how long did that process take? And I'm sure you were slowed down by COVID at the time. Well, first of all, why did the property need to, tell us a little bit about the property itself. Why did you choose that one and why did it need the renovation?
From the get-go, I knew I wanted to go value add. I knew I wanted to get that experience renovation-wise. I knew I wanted to, take a larger bite out of, that first purchase because, that was important to me at this period, going through that renovation process, going through that learning experience. And we were looking for dated, homes in the area that, needed modern improvements.
Let me just mention that Steve's agent was also one of the agents on our team, Max Vishnev, that was showing you around as well at the time.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yeah, we were looking I was looking for that value add, I was looking for that experience and the end result. Post renovation, I'm left with a newly renovated 2-family in this scenario, little capex, low maintenance. Upon getting under contract, we did discover some potential structural issues. The 2-family home was an estate sale. When you hear structure, when you hear, cracked sewer line, some people would run.
Yeah.
I knew the sellers had to sell, and I knew, we had some leverage. So I decided to play ball to see if they will as well. And they didn't balk. We came across a potential structural issue at the time from a small access point, small crawl space, first, ground level floor, erosion, some termite damage on the joists and that section of the main beam. Upon further due diligence, we had a few contractors come inside, and we had to get quotes. And because that was the only access point, we had to assume the rest of the foundation or the rest of that ground floor was the same, and we had to assume worst case scenario because of
Sure.
course the sellers wouldn't let us open up that floor there. And quotes came in around 45 to 50,000, and we ended up negotiating around $55,000 price
Inspection
reduction.
credit.
Yeah, and we did get some of that back. We rolled the dice there. Now I was confident in the contractors that I had assessed the property. I ended up closing about 2 days after. We ripped up the floor, did our further due diligence, and it ended up not being as severe as we thought. And we stitched a new joist, to the current joist, rebuilt that whole ground floor up, new subfloor for a fraction of the cost. And then at that moment, you can say I thought I was Superman, on top here. And then less than a week later, that's when COVID began, and then that's when all the fun began.
Correct me if I'm wrong because I wasn't involved in the transaction, but your house was the result of a fire, right?
Yeah, so to, I guess, go through the story, we closed March 2020. We had the property gutted down to the studs, getting ready to start a $200,000 renovation. We're about 2 weeks in, COVID happens, lockdowns begin. This is my wife and I's first purchase. We put the right people in our corner, but FHA 203K still is a first-time homeowners loan program, so we were learning as we go. And unprecedented times, peak COVID. We're trying to get permits pulled. The city's telling us, municipalities and Bayonne saying, we're also learning because this is new and we don't know how, things are going to pan out. Bear with us. We had the bank in our ear, pressuring us because we do have, a timeline with these loans to get that renovation done and then closed out. And we pushed through that renovation for about about 5.5 months, and it was light at the end of the tunnel. We're about 3 weeks out from finishing. The two family bought his row house, attached home, and my neighbor's house catches on fire one Saturday morning, and it definitely caught us by surprise. My wife and we were living in our unit, which was we were renovating in pieces. We were pretty much settled with the first unit's renovation, and getting ready to find a tenant for that unit. And we woke up one Saturday morning around 9:30 to fire alarms. I roll out of bed, walk downstairs. My wife's following me to see what's going on, and I open up my front door, and it's straight out of a movie scene. There are about six fire trucks pulling up to our block right in front of our house. I turn to the left, and I see my neighbor's house on fire. I turn around to my wife and I say, "Grab the dogs. This is real.
Wow.
We gotta get out of the house." It was definitely something. Yeah.
That's scary. So, like you mentioned, you were 3 weeks away from a completed renovation where you spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, went through a lot of hoops and hurdles to get it done with the city and whatnot, and during a very stressful time in history. So what happened next? Did you have to just start over at that point? Well, I guess I should ask, did your house catch on fire?
So the smoke did travel to our house. Out of the 5 attached homes, pretty much up to our house was completely wiped out. So we did have to reset and do it all over again. Someone speaking on it after the fact, in that moment, you don't see that light at the end of the tunnel, right? We just went through that renovation.
Right.
We just got over that, the hurdles there. And now we got, hire an adjuster, bring in the insurance company, restoration company comes in, they got the property all over again. And while living in a hotel during still COVID, we have to restart the renovation. In that moment, definitely a test for my wife and I. Same year, we also did just get married. So, it's these experiences that mold
When
you.
it rains, it pours.
That's it. And 19, 20-year-old home, I saw, we were coming out on top with some of the insurance money. And I saw the opportunity, and I took a leap. And that was when I ended up leaving Related and jumping in full-time as a realtor. In about 3 weeks, got my license, and then shortly after that, you and I met.
So the way, obviously, this is a good lesson to have insurance when you purchase a property. Any lender is going to require, but even if you're buying cash, you should get insurance. How did it work with insurance? Did they just cut you a check, or did they reimburse for work done?
An insurance company is your friend until you need them. I've learned that.
Yeah.
And the adjuster that we hired basically fought for us to get as much money back as we owed. And we had a bucket for loss of use, which would be the money that would go towards the hotel. We had a bucket for the construction, and essentially our adjuster worked with what we had, because we did just go through that renovation, settled up with the insurance company to give us what was necessary to re-renovate the home based off of what we did.
When you went through that process, did you change the scope of the renovation, or did you kind of just redo it the same?
Exactly the same way we renovated it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same crew, same everything, right?
Yep. Through that experience, I definitely leaned on those around me with the renovation and the turn of events. It's as an investor, I learned that it's very important to fall in love with that process, right? It is all about the process. I was a totally different investor from the first offer I submitted to the last. As an agent now, sending listings to my clients, going out there and touring different markets, I tell them, right, every listing I send you is a two-dimensional showing in itself. Let's cast a wide net, because that's what I did, right? You're going to slowly get familiar with the market, and you're going to slowly get a sense of value in the market. We're going to go out there, and you're going to realize it's going to click. This is my criteria. This is what my first purchase looks like. This is what my, the perfect investment property looks like. relative to, again, my criteria,
Right.
right? Everyone has a budget, everyone
Yeah.
has different goals. What do you seek in cash flow appreciation? In every scenario is a snowflake. One thing I learned is that it is about that process, because that's where you hone in on your criteria. And additionally, that's where you learn, right? A big part of that 203K experience was me learning from those around me. The FHA 203K construction loan is investing with training wheels, right? You have the HUD consultant, bank gives you a general contractor specialist to guide and advise you on the construction standpoint, right? I learned a lot from my purchase with the FHA 203K, with that, rehab experience. And then now, as I assist clients with this, I'm consistently still learning, more and more from that HUD consultant who will walk the property, me, my client, and the HUD consultant, and tell us if there's anything we have to do, right, with a FHA loan. And then we'll tell him what we want to do. We want to renovate the kitchens, baths, new flooring, the works.
Sure.
And then he'll give us, a breakdown of those costs and material and labor. And then the bank's in your corner to help you with construction. And then we will go find a contractor. Since, I do work most of these 203Ks, I do have contractors who are kept on standby for these loans. We send them that bid sheet that the bank provides, that blank bid sheet. They bid on it. We lock in a contractor. We close. The construction begins. But that process, from a construction standpoint, as an investor, you will plan to, I'm sure, at some point, as an investor, you will renovate a property. Or the bank's gonna, show you how to check those boxes on the construction front. As a first-time investor, first-time buyer, how many people fully renovated a property like that? Not many. So the bank is gonna
Yeah, it's
guide
great.
you there.
The training wheel analogy is very helpful. So let's dive into the numbers a little bit with this investment. Purchase price, you have the inspection credit, you have the renovation cost, and then I want to go into, you have a rental in there. So your total mortgage cost now, your rental income, and then what it's worth today. The only thing I want you to leave out, because it's a very unique situation, is the insurance issue. Let's pretend that never happened. You did the first
Okay.
renovation and whatnot. So take us through the numbers there.
Original contract price was $345,
Okay.
and then the day after Christmas, a couple other offers came in, and we had in state New Jersey, we unfortunately didn't get under contract, so we did have to increase our purchase price in a highest and best situation post accepted offer.
Sure.
But
Happened to me
we
too.
got in for 365.
Okay. So you went up 20 grand.
So we went up 20 grand.
365. Okay.
Won that highest and best. Ended up settling at 310,500.
That's after the inspection.
That's
credit.
after the inspection.
Okay. So your closing price on the closing disclosure was 310,500.
310,500. So believe it or not, pre-COVID, you were able to get a two-family for under 400,000.
I mean, it's insane to think
Hudson
about now
County.
in hindsight.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we closed for 310. We have about 100,000, about 90,000 for the construction loan, which we borrow, and then my wife and I have about another 100,000 that we put in on top of that.
So 200,000, let's call it, right?
Yep.
So 310 plus 200, we're in at 510.
So we were in around 500 all in.
500. Okay.
Yeah. Now with the construction loan, the bank is still lending you money for the purchase, so they are going to still appraise it. In that instance, they appraise it based off the after repair value.
Sure.
So before closing, value was around 550.
Okay.
So we did, in theory, it is unrealized
40,000
gains, but we did walk into about 40 to 50,000 in equity.
And what do you feel it's worth today?
Today, value is around 660.
660. Okay, so we're into it for 500, and the value is around 660. How many years later?
4 years later.
4 years later. Okay. And what is your mortgage rate and payment? I know your rate, I'm sure, is substantially lower than today's, but let's just talk about what your all-in payment is for the home, and then you're getting the rental income to offset some of it.
Yep. So the mortgage rate is 4.75,
Okay.
and PITI, principal interest, taxes, insurance, is around 3,800. I would say 3,600. I believe water is around
So that's
200.
3,600, then
Yeah.
200, so
Yeah. So
3,800
my
total.
total payment would be around
And
3,800.
what's what you rent out one of the units?
And then the duplex unit one is rented for 2,600, and then my wife and I, we are living in unit two, and that market rent there is around 2,100.
So you're paying right now $1,200 a month to live there, which is amazing. You can't find anything for $1,200 in this market. And if you decided to move out, rent it out, you're going to get 2,100 in addition to the 2,600. So that's 4,700, right?
Yep.
And your on payment's 3,800. So basically $900 a month cash flow if you decide to move out.
Yeah, and that's what the beauty of real estate. Time in is everything. Getting in the market. A main focus for me early on was understanding get in quick. You buy the first one, quick you buy the second one,
Yeah.
so on, third, fourth.
Yeah,
Now you got a
velocity, yeah.
portfolio. Now you're building equity. The time to buy real estate. Best time to buy real estate is 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What was also important to me was understanding house hacking, right? Moving into a multifamily and renting out that unit, having the tenant pay for a portion of the mortgage,
Sure.
right? What we save is just as important as what we invest, and especially in a luxury appreciation market like Hudson County, where prices, taxes, the cost of living is high.
Yeah.
It's very common for homeowners, non-investors, to live in multifamilies because of that reason.
Yeah.
Now, as an investor buying a multifamily, and house hacking is it's definitely a great way to get your start. Exactly what I did. The quicker you do that, the quicker you can start building, wealth.
Well, what do you say to those in our audience who say, well, now we're in a different market. Prices are so high. Interest rates are so high. Are you buying in today's market? What do you say to those people that are just like, well, this was 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and now it's just impossible?
That's a good question. So it comes down to your goals, right? Me personally, I'm long-term buy and hold. I'm not concerned with what rates are doing because history will show us that they fluctuate up and down, right? Although they are still relatively, low in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
But prices only go up if you look back at history, right? I went to school for economics. We're big history buffs. Right now it is simple economics. The last 3 years, as rates have increased from historic lows, we have seen that the rates aren't your main economic variable. It's simple economics. It's supply and demand, or the lack of supply and the strong demand. So it's relative to your goals. It's relative to your market. It's there are a lot of variables, but I am buying today, and I'm a strong believer on continuing to buy, just switching up your investment approach and dealing with the market. Right now, we're in a very unique situation. Post-COVID, post-low interest rate era, we saw rates drop down to 2%, right? You have homeowners who are holding on to 2, 3, 4% interest rates,
Yeah.
right? Economists are coining it the lock-in effect. Why would you get rid of that? So supply is staying low and demand's only increasing, right? We're heading into the summer, right? The warm buying, it's peak buying season. We're heading into, the warmer weather, and I don't anticipate supply picking up, and I don't anticipate that for some time now, but demand has always been strong, at least in this Hudson County market. We have New York City, a global international market at our front door. We have two inner cities, Jersey City, Newark, 250 to 300,000 people. The jobs, the growth potential, the opportunity within.
Yeah.
And when you're invested for the long term, it's very important to, not overanalyze, not overthink, not to lose sight of what's important. Location, location, location. As cliche as it is, everyone knows that, but what does that actually mean? Why is that a thing? Well, you can't pick a home up and move it. That's what makes the investment so special. That's what makes that property so special and unique. And when it comes to investing, it is about niche, right? Niche location. niche market, right? That's a big aspect. And there's a thin line between good investment on paper and a good investment, a tangible asset itself, the real estate itself. When it comes to buying long-term real estate, I mean, I'm a big believer. Me personally, I would pay a premium for a great property and get a killer deal on an okay property.
Right. Yeah. Same.
And think about a brownstone. A lot of that brownstone, that charm. A lot of them here in downtown Jersey City, in Hoboken, beautiful buildings. You're gonna pay a premium for that today. But if you can own a building like that 30 years from now, I'm
Yeah.
sure you do quite well. So it's there's a thin line there with finding that good property and then that good deal on paper. Newer investors, I was victim of it, tend to overanalyze, paralysis analysis. They let the numbers steer them, and it's something you don't want to get caught up in, because wasted time on the sidelines can cost you money. And you can sit around looking for the perfect deal, but it
Right.
doesn't
Right.
exist. You get in the market. I mean, I fully renovated my two family, and I got 50,000 in equity. Right. Fast forward to now. I mean, I pulled out a home equity line of credit. I got $150,000 to play with to buy the next one.
There you go.
And it's time in the market is everything. The equity is always the cherry on top. This is an appreciation market. I'm sure it'll come, but you want to get in, and you want to take advantage of all that real estate has to offer. That appreciation, that cash flow, tax advantages, the works.
Okay, cool. And so, in the midst of all this, you get licensed, you become a realtor, and then going back to my original question, and you did very well your first year. You hit the ground kind of running, and I attribute, and you attribute some of that to this experience. So tell us about how you were able to hit the ground running and really get going, and then how many homes you sold your first year and that sort of thing.
Definitely. So from that experience, I mean, it definitely taught me a lot. I got my license. I kind of, took that leap, jumping in full time, and things just kind of fell into place. Developed a niche working with investors, first time investors, first time buyers, those looking to do what I did, and really leverage my experience. Purchasing a two family, moving into one unit, renting out the other. Purchasing a multifamily, similar scenario, using an FHA 2 or 3K loan to renovate, and then eventually move in, and then move out. In the end, keep that multifamily as a rental, right? So house hacking. From there, things moved to investors, right? I started off as an investor. I developed that niche. I doubled down on working with investors thereof, from cash players, fix and flippers, and then of course your newer investors. And early on, it was all about relationships for me. Right, as an investor, I was networking. I was out meeting people. I was active on Bigger Pockets. I was sending yellow letters. I was dropping "We Buy Houses" business cards everywhere. I was always putting myself out there to make
Sure.
sure someone knew that
That you're in the business.
that I was in the and at that point the real estate investing business. And then once I got my license, everything just fell into place. That definitely helped me with my business as a realtor, and things moved very quickly. My first full year, I did hit platinum as part of the New Jersey Realtors Circle of Excellence Award as my first full year as a realtor, closing 35 deals, around 25 million in sales volume. And then second year, also hit platinum level, and kind of just double down on this niche, and realized that I was going to focus solely on working with investors and first-time home buyers, those looking to get their start in real estate.
So now that you're here, now that you're more experienced, you've closed dozens of deals at this point. What separates you? Why should someone seek out you versus another agent? Is there a difference? Because a lot of people think an agent just opens doors, for example. What is it that separates you?
It's a good question. So as an investor-focused agent, there's definitely an edge, right? I've always had the mindset, it's never yes or no, but yes or how, right? How am I going to get this done? And that's just been my competitive edge, as an athlete growing up, it's a big part of the business, putting yourself in that position to get a deal done. And as an investor, there are creative ways to get deals done that I will use for my clients to really push them to the closing table. When it comes to an agent, who's at least active on the buy side, getting to relationships, right? Someone who's working with those lenders that the listing agent knows, someone who's closing deals, and someone that listing agent knows. That relationship part of the business goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Steve, where do you think you go from here? Are you more focused on investments for yourself in your investment portfolio? Are you more focused on being an agent? Are you trying to accomplish both? Like, where do you see your career headed over the next 5 to 10 years?
My plan is to continue to invest and work Hudson County, North Jersey. This is the market. This is where I want to put my money. And simultaneously, this is where I want to continue to help clients put their money. And I believe in this market, right? I started here for a reason. Until Manhattan's underwater, I will be putting my money into Hudson County. I like to joke around about, but definitely, my plan is to build a team of investor-focused agents around this niche. And in this business, it's a double-edged sword, right? We, as an agent, our goal is to provide that exceptional service. Now, as an investor agent, well, my goal is to provide value to my investor clients, right? How can I be on the phone, calling off-market leads and finding an off-market deal for my investor client, and also be giving that same exceptional service to my other clients? So my focus is to build, a team around investor-minded agents who can help do both. And in this market, there's opportunity. There's only so much I can do. So, I plan to double down on that.
Very well. Well, I think you made a great case for buying now or in any market. And it's great to hear your story. Do you have any closing remarks before I conclude the interview?
Yeah, so if you're looking to get your start as an investor, if you enjoyed hearing my story, if you want to learn more, definitely get in touch.
And Steve, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram, Real Estate with Steve. You can reach out to myself, my direct. I unfortunately work 80 hours a week. So at any time, my wife is not going to be happy to hear that. But you can, call me, text me, email me. Yeah, happy to chat.
Yeah, and it's funny because I wanted to mention the 80 hours a week. Like this, don't be fooled. Success in real estate, especially in a short time frame like you've achieved, it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of time. And Steve works his butt off. He works 60 to 80 hours a week, closer to 80. And I love getting emails from him at 3 a.m. So anyway, that concludes our interview. Thanks for tuning in. Steve, it was a pleasure. And hopefully your phone rings because people have a lot of things to speak with you about. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Ed.